Safety 365.
Welcome back to Safety 365, where our goal is to help you navigate more safely through your daily activities and understand the importance of taking proactive measures to safeguard yourself. Today's show sponsors are Bolo Stick LLC, the door barricade device, and Rolf & Son Painting, where they don't just paint your house, they beautify your home. Today we'll be addressing the topic of concussions and student athletes and how they affect the young and old athletes alike. Today we're joined by two experts in the field. Andrea Ferenac, Activities Director for Howland Local Schools, and Shannon Sheptuck, Athletic Trainer for Howland Local Schools. Thank you for coming in.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
They're just going to run off at the mouth. See that? They talk so much. Andrea, I've known you since I was a school resource officer with Howland PD, so we interacted quite a bit.
Right.
And the fact that my sons were involved in activities and played sports, we saw each other quite a bit. I also did a little public address.
You were
announcing there at the JV games. Yeah,
you did.
That's it.
Kept us entertained.
Yeah, entertaining, yes. Good, I don't know, but entertaining, yes. You've been. I think we talked, and you were AD for 8 years,
This
9
is
years.
my 8th year. I was
Wow.
an assistant for 3.
That's just crazy.
It is.
That's just crazy how time flies. I remember when you were first in. Like,
I know.
just on the scene,
Spring
fresh and on the
chicken.
scene.
I know. Not so much anymore.
Well, you're still young, way younger than me. Shannon, you and I are meeting for the first time, so hello.
Hi.
It's great to finally put a face with a name.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about your background.
I currently work for Mercy Health, so that's who contracts me to be at Howland and work at the school. I just got married in November.
Yay.
We have a dog and a crazy cat. So that's basically me. I was a student athlete through high school and college, and that kind of led me to
I heard
do
you were a
what I
lacrosse
did.
standout. Is that true?
You could say
Yeah.
maybe.
She's humble. She's humble.
High school, yes. College,
Different
you know,
level, huh?
completely different.
It's a lot
And
faster game.
It
Yeah.
is, and I went to one of the best Division III schools I could go to for the sport. So
And that was Mount Union. Right?
Yeah.
Okay,
my
so-
coach there, who recruited me, was the reason why I went there 100%. I didn't know what I wanted to do when I went there.
So you went to school just to play, and then you figured out what you wanted to do. Actually,
I was
study?
that kid. Yeah, I was that kid when I left school. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to do something in healthcare, but I wanted to go and I thought nursing at the time. And then I had somebody when I was there just doing orientation that approached me that was an athletic trainer that taught at the school, and that's how I got to where I am.
That's just great. Well, I don't think, and this is just me personally, I don't think we prepare our kids a good mindset after high school.
Right.
Like high school's there, and then they leave, and they're just like, well, I'll go to college. That's the next thing.
Yeah.
And they don't really know.
Mhm.
And they can't. They're kids.
I agree.
Yeah.
They're young. I mean, I went through so many different things. I was going to be a political science major, and after first quarter back then at YSU, I said, nope, not doing that. Then I was going to be a nutritional therapist, and I said, nope, not going to do that. And I was going to be a physical therapist. I went to Toledo, and I studied. I partied probably more than I studied. And after 3.5 years, I decided, college isn't for me. I don't have the grades to get into the medical college, so I'm done. I went home, and my dad had a job for me the very next day, landscaping. So then police work just kind of showed up.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And then 33 years of that, and
Here
now
you are.
here I am,
Exactly.
podcast star.
I always said if that person wouldn't approach me, I don't know if I'd be doing what I do now.
Yeah.
It wasn't when I was at Mooney, we didn't have an athletic trainer. When I was in high school, we didn't have athletic trainers around the area, so I didn't know what it was. And I don't think a lot of people do still to this day quite know if you don't come in contact with one or have one at your school, you don't know.
That should
So
be a
they don't know
course
it's a
all in of its
career.
own. Yeah, it should be-
Right.
yeah, maybe out here at the Career Center.
We've been fortunate, I think, within our school district to kind of, even when I was going to school through Howland, we had an AT at not to the extent where it is today. But
Well, I think it's more relevant now. I mean, with the athletes
Right.
are increasing in size and strength and
Yeah.
speed, there's more stuff going on.
There is.
But
And I'll say that I think the competition's definitely more physical than it was then. You see things you didn't see then. So I think that changes it. The competitiveness and the athleticism that is what it is today. I think the training that goes into it, even for high school sports, is completely
we're a
different.
competitive society, I think,
Yeah.
just in general. Even though I think some of the kids have gotten softer with all the electronics,
Yeah.
The ones that have the competitive gene,
Yeah.
they are ultra competitive.
And obviously on the school side, like safety is one of our number one priorities.
Howland's always done a great job.
I
always.
think so. I truly believe so too.
Always. I've been
And-
happy to be affiliated with them. Like I said, again, my kids in
Right.
sports and such, there was always somebody there. And my son Josh, he was a lot like me. And he played hard,
Yep.
and he got hurt.
I remember Josh. I
hard.
remember how he played.
Yeah, he was a tough
Yep.
kid. But when you play hard, you get hurt, and
Yeah.
that's why we have you. So that's what it's all about.
It's peace
Yeah.
of mind from our perspective, obviously, like to have a trained professional. Like,
Well,
as
think of the parents up there in the
part of your
stands.
team.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
last thing
Yeah.
you want to see is your kid down on the field, and you're like, wow. But at least you know you're in good hands.
Yep.
They're in good hands.
Yeah. My goal has always been this way, that if I make sure the parents know who I am, I try my best to make sure that I'm at those preseason meetings so the parents know it's not just some stranger working on their kid.
That's
Like, I want those parents to feel like, okay, Shannon's going out there, he's going to be or she's going to be okay.
I always sat in view of the AT,
Yeah.
so they knew where I was at in the stands because inevitably my kid was going to get hurt.
Yeah.
That's just
Yeah.
was going to happen. All right. Well, let's lighten the mood and get you comfortable here at Old Safety 365. I'd like to get started with our safety question of the day. Are you ready?
Sure.
Okay. Since we all enjoy watching our children compete in sports and are aware of the risks involved, we know that it's only a matter of time before they sustain an injury of some type. Hopefully, it isn't a head injury. That's always bad. But realistically, the odds are pretty high that they might get their bell rung. That's what we called it back in the day. And if there's any kind of contact sport. So for every parent out there, our question is a practical one. What is the average cost associated per concussion treatment?
Oh, geez.
Wow. Right?
Yeah.
I think it's an in-depth question, actually, and layered, depending upon.
Oh, see,
I'd
here you go.
say-
Here's these
here's the-
educated
here-
people coming in here. They're going to
exactly.
break it down.
We're gonna break it
I just had the
down, but-
prosecutor in here.
I
Now
mean-
you're going to go ahead. Okay, go ahead.
Exactly, but
Andrea.
I look at it in terms of, we're fortunate because we have a partnership too with Mercy. They actually provide their athletic training services to us for free.
Oh, wow.
And you can imagine, as a school district and our taxpayers, that's a huge.
That's
like,
huge.
Huge in terms of partnership parts, and they also provide the impact testing for our students. I know that was one of the things that
We'll
we were
touch
going
on
to-
that. Look
exactly,
at you.
so
Look at you. Did you look at my
segue,
crib
but-
notes?
but-
You've been going
but-
through these?
But
Yeah.
the impact is part of what they take care of with our partnership, and they pay for that as well for our student
That's
athletes.
fantastic.
Yes.
That's fantastic. Well, across the U.S., they said that the average cost of concussions suffered playing high school American football in the U.S. is approximately $800.
I believe it.
I mean, that doesn't sound like a whole lot of money, $800, but I don't know, when you got a family with kids and you're
Right.
both working and your kids are in sports, number one, if they're in sports, you're paying a lot of money for a lot of different things. And another $800 out towards your deductibles and whatever else they're going to, that's a
Yep,
huge
it
chunk.
is.
So
Yeah.
I think it's important that, we understand a little bit more about, what's going on with the safety of these athletes and the frequency of these concussions. We will find out more in a segment I like to call You Don't Know What You Don't Know. So, there it is.
Music.
So, and You Don't Know What You Don't Know, we like to bring forth some stats, some figures, and facts. While the total number of injuries across high school sports has decreased since 2005, the total number of concussions has increased by 87%. This was from neuroeffects.com. They say that National High School Sports-Related Injury Surveillance Study using 2018-19 data, because 20 was COVID, closing everything. The third highest sport with concussions was boys soccer, and the total concussions there was 31,061. Interesting. Number 2 was girls soccer. Total concussions 48,402. And number 1, obviously, is going to be football at 99,036. Well, clearly football is a problem. I mean, but I was shocked to see that girls soccer was higher in concussions than boys soccer. Why?
I would probably say I guess it's the way that they the way the play is. I don't know. This year especially, I noticed that the speed of the play was different, and I do think that the ball is in the air more. I feel like in girls soccer, I don't know why that is, but I do see the ball that is in the air more, which is probably what's leading to these concussions. Is they're going for like a header and they end up hitting heads or.
See, since you're
something
newly married, I
occurs.
thought you were going to say because guys are hard-headed
No,
and they don't get
I
hurt
mean,
as often.
I thought about it.
Yeah, I knew it was there. I sensed it. It was an aura. But yeah. I mean, I kind of thought that was different. That girls soccer had more concussions, but again, physiologically, we're built different.
The
Yeah.
core is different.
Yeah.
Neck and shoulder strength's different.
Right.
And I think that probably contributes a little bit to it. I played soccer. I actually taking a header is one of the things I didn't like to do when I was playing.
Yeah.
Because there's a proper. I think they're trained better now because of obviously we're more cognizant of injuries, but. I just think that jolt and how the core, the neck, that shoulder strength is important too. And boys naturally have some of that
They're
already.
just built differently. Yeah,
They
they're built differently. Sure, because I think speed-wise, girls and boys are
Yeah,
traveling pretty fast.
Yes.
They're pretty equal in speed. I really thought you were going to go with the hard-headed boys there on that one, but okay.
I mean, I thought about it because if you ask
Especially if
Andrea,
your
my husband can be pretty hard-headed,
And he
and
plans
I
on
know
watching
he's gonna
this.
listen to this, and he'll agree with me.
Oh yeah, he was egging me on via text this morning, getting her all juiced up. So
Well, there you go. Well,
Oh,
you
God.
you deserve what you got coming to you.
Yeah.
Obviously, injuries are part of competitive sports. We know that. Since we can't surround our kids in bubble wrap anymore, as much as these parents like to, they're precious little gems. Injuries are imminent, but how imminent? What I found out from the Head Case Company is 1 in 5 high school athletes will sustain a sports concussion during the season. 1 in 5. Okay. 33% of high school athletes who have a sports concussion report 2 or more in the same year. 4 to 5 million concussions occur annually, with rising numbers among middle school athletes. And interestingly, 90% of most of these diagnosed concussions do not involve a loss of consciousness. So, I think back to my days in sports, and it was a balmy 90-degree day, I swear, 2-a-day practice, and I was a JV back, and they were going through JV backs like they were, cut out with paper. So they called down for a JV back. I ran down there, and we're going against first-string defense. Morning practice, pitch right, I take the ball, I start running, I see this big guy, and I can still see him. I go to cut. I don't cut. I slip on the grass, and just as I'm going down, he hits me. He hits me hard. And I must have laid there for 3-4 minutes with the bells were ringing. It was just a woo, woo, woo sound. Eyes open and just a blank TV screen. And he was standing there with his hand out to try and help me up because he hit me good. Never saw him. Like when I actually did get up, like I remember the coach. This is going back a long time. Coach said, "Go grab some water." I know I was concussed. I had no idea what planet I was on, and I'm on the sidelines just in a daze. That was the extent of our concussion protocol back then.
right.
I guarantee, and I was back at practice for the afternoon practice.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen today.
It does not.
I
No.
guarantee it.
It's not even close.
So
No.
when we throw the word concussion around, it's everyday jargon. But what exactly is a concussion?
It's a traumatic brain injury, whether it's mild, moderate. There's different ways of.
So for
grading
moms and dads out there, just layman's terms, what actually happens to make a concussion happen?
So the brain basically sits in your head, and some people don't know this. It's floating in fluid, and if you're hit hard enough that it would jolt the brain around, it causes that traumatic brain injury. Whether it doesn't matter where the athlete's having pain necessarily, but if that were to occur, then that's how the symptoms start.
So it's a tennis ball in a jar, and when you shake it, it's hitting the sides, basically, and then it's bruising back, front, or wherever. Okay, so moms and dads, if you're listening, that's what a concussion is. A traumatic brain injury. Is it serious? Most times, I don't think. I mean, like I said, I've had concussions, and
Right.
it wasn't anything bad, but you don't know.
Right.
You don't know. So
Most parents don't. Some will ask me, I need to take them to the hospital, and I'll tell them, no, you do not have to take your child to the hospital, unless I
you got $800 to blow. Sure,
right,
go ahead.
Right. Or I'll tell them, I'm like, if you're gonna take your child to the hospital, 9 times out of 10 you're gonna end up with a CAT scan, and it's not something you
That's
need.
not even going to show anything.
Right.
No,
Right?
unless
Unless there's a bleed.
unless there's a bleed.
Okay.
So that's like I tell patients or I tell parents, the athletes, I'll tell them like if I feel like there's something extremely out of norm, I'll tell you to go. But otherwise, I just have the parents monitor them. They go home if they're extremely uncomfortable, and then the parents have my number. And if something comes up that they don't know about, they call me.
So they tell you to rest.
Yeah.
But they say don't go to sleep.
So that's like an old wives' tale. Like
Because I remember that. Don't go to sleep.
Or they'll tell you. They used to tell the parents to wake their kids up every couple hours in the night. You don't have to do that anymore.
Okay.
At least that's what we've been taught.
What was that safeguard? To make sure you don't slip into a coma or something?
Basically,
or?
they wanted to make sure they kept checking your cognitive function to make sure that nothing had changed. Meaning, like, when you wake your child up, has there been a change in their cognitive state or how they're acting or things of that sort?
Gotcha.
Just making sure that nothing has developed over that time period, because I think there was always a worry that something could change, or if you did not go to the hospital, that, the bleed wasn't recognized, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I can imagine today's litigious society, if the mom says, well, should I take him to the hospital? I mean, me, if I was an AT, I'd be like, that's your call. I mean, I don't know that you have to, but I'm not going to say you shouldn't. It's a
Right.
great secondary opinion, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
I always tell parents, I can give you my professional opinion. You can take it if you want to. If not, then by all means, if you're more comfortable, you know your child better than I do. But I also let the parents know I'm around your children almost every single day. In the fall, I'm there every day. And now in the winter, I have daily clinical hours at the school. So I'm around their children almost every day.
yeah.
So, I mean,
You
yes.
kind of know what the kids, the athletes
Yeah,
are going
I
to
know how
act
they
like.
act. I know how they act. I know how they are. If I feel like something's off with them, or just from the clinical tools that I use, obviously, I'll let them know, like, hey, you need to take them to see the primary care. But I'm not going to necessarily say take them to the hospital unless it's absolutely like something's telling me.
Right.
One of my clinical tools or my evaluation is telling me that this person needs to go to the emergency room.
And it usually happens immediately.
Yes, yeah. It's
So,
not like I would be able to tell by the evaluation, like.
One pupil's this big and the other
right.
one's
So
like,
if their pupils are not reacting appropriately with light, that's a big sign right there.
Yeah.
Loss of consciousness,
Numbness
yeah.
of their extremities. Sometimes we have some stuff where the imbalanced parts, or
Yeah.
she's very good.
Running to the wrong sideline after.
Yeah, I mean,
confusion's
confusion
definitely
is-
something
We
that
talked to
happens
my son.
regularly.
right. I
Yeah.
would say within probably if not immediately. We had one situation. I would say about 10-15 minutes after we got concerned, and we transported because we're not going to.
Well, we see that in professional
Yeah.
athletes right now in football. I mean,
Yeah.
you look at Tua and some of these
Yeah.
guys are taking these hits. They're getting up and they're going off the field, and
Right.
it's later that
Yeah.
they're
Some
having
signs, I don't know why. There's probably doctors out there that could explain it better than I could, but some symptoms don't necessarily happen immediately after the
it's
contact.
like a delayed response.
Kind of, and I think the body, it takes time for it to react. I don't know why. There's
Maybe
obviously
adrenaline wears off a little bit too.
Yeah.
Like, some of it's just
Sure.
kind of.
Yeah, trust me, I get that. I totally get that. So if you have a single concussion, it's probably not as much to worry about. But if you have repeated concussions, now we're talking. All right, you're damaging your brain more and more often.
Yeah.
I look at like these boxers.
Mm-hmm.
I look at Muhammad Ali, and that guy was the best of the best, in my opinion, best boxer of all time.
Mm-hmm.
But in his day, the best at what he did. But he took so many shots to the head.
Mm-hmm.
They say that 80 to 90% of boxers sustain concussions.
Mm-hmm.
That's
A lot.
Yeah.
that's a lot. That's a lot. Now you look at mixed martial arts. While they're not taking as many shots to the head because you've got arms and feet, in grappling, there's a lot more things that go to it. But they're probably, I think, 47 out of 50 bouts somebody's getting concussed.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyways, so this is more serious than we thought. I think. We look at a bunch of different things. None of us want to see any student athletes get hurt or injured, but especially we don't want a head injury. It brings us to our next segment I like to call reaction time. I'm certain that every grandparent and parent out there has just turned the volume up if they're watching this podcast because they want to find out what Johnny's doing, what's going on with him. How does a parent, coach, or trainer know that a player has actually suffered a concussion? What do you look for?
It's more about what they tell me, to be honest with you. When you walk up to the athlete and you talk with them, I guess if it's not an athlete that I regularly know, say it's a visiting athlete, then it's obviously I'm gonna have to rely on my tools as far as I check their pupils, the way their eyes track, things of that sort. Those are like what I start with. I'll ask them what happened, even if I know what happened myself and I, see it in person myself. My goal is to ask that kid, how did the injury happen, to see if they are able to recall it or remember.
Well, that's key right there.
Yes.
When you said that, my son, when he was, I don't know, maybe a sophomore, and they were playing up at Ashtabula, beautiful stadium up there, and he was on kickoff team. He was so excited. He got in, right? He got to play varsity. Streaking down the field on kickoff. Head on a swivel is something we teach. However, it didn't register that day. And he's going for the ball, and he got clipped. I mean, he got hit hard. Literally walked off to the wrong sideline, and his buddy had to pull him back and get him over to the other sideline. When he got off the bus after the game, after traveling back from Ashtabula, he's like, "Dad, I don't even know how I got here." He goes, "I don't know what's going on." I'm like, "Yeah, you got your bell rung real good." So he was definitely concussed, and they went through protocol back then. But the dizziness, the fatigue, what do I want to say, disorientation, not knowing where you're at. Yeah, it was just a blur. The headaches and such. But he turned out all right. Got him out of the house. We're fine. We're doing good now.
I mean, their body language most of the time will really tell
Dad
tell
knew
you
as
what's
soon
going
as he got off the
on.
bus.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, you're not right. You've got a concussion. And it was a few days before he could, I think probably close to a week before he could even get back to practicing. And I think they err on the side of safety at all times.
Yeah.
These are young athletes. All they want to do is play. And the hardest thing to do is keep them out. But they had to, And you guys, you were there. I'm sure you were there for that game. So, so the physical observation is for the pupils, obviously, and the disorientation. Obviously, if they're nauseous, that's probably another sign.
Dizziness or
headaches.
the first thing I normally do is I try to get like the best history I can from them by just talking to them first before I shine a light in their eye or like do anything. I think talking to them first is the best way to kind of get a little bit of a history, because if I notice that they can't tell me what happened and I know what happened or it's wrong, then I know
usually
we've got
if you get hit, you can remember
on.
that dude hit me.
Right. Yeah.
But if you can't remember that means there's a blind spot there somewhere. Something's going on.
Yeah.
And that's the worst feeling in the world, to see your kid out there and they take a shot and they're down.
Yeah.
And you guys are out there. How many times do you see it throughout the seasons? God bless you. I don't know. I'd be pulling my hair out. So if we are looking for signs, we're talking about dazed or stunned, confused about the assignment, forgets plays, unsure of the game score or even the opponent. Yeah, red flags all over the place.
Absolutely.
So what's the best course of treatment at that point? What do you do?
So normally I'll remove them from play, and then depending upon at what point of the game we're at or match, I'll encourage the athlete to go change, get into comfortable clothing, and then my first route is to try to find the parent or the guardian or whoever they live with, whether that means calling them or talking with them in person. Normally I prefer to talk to them in person, but as far as treatment goes, nothing really.
Try to hydrate them. I mean,
you can, but most kids, so I'll tell them to, push hydration, but most kids are not going to want to eat. I always tell parents, you don't have to force them to eat. If they don't feel like
that's when I always knew there was something wrong with my kid if he didn't want to eat.
Right. I mean, they'll tell you if they're nauseated, they're not going to want to eat. Parents will ask me, is it okay to let them go home and rest? Yes. The course of treatment is really having them sit in a dark, quiet area.
That's what I was going to say. I remember always being told, dimly lit room.
Yep.
Especially in today's society, obviously we're such creatures of electronic devices.
No electronic
it's
stimulation.
Like minimizing that hardcore stimulation and just give your brain a chance to rest.
That's constantly bombarding their senses with stuff.
Right.
So the hardest thing is to get kids not to play video games or be on their computers or phones. I tell them, I'm like, if your symptoms are bad enough and you pick that phone up, you're going to know how you feel. So that's my thing. It's like if your symptoms are bad enough, you're not going to
get that vertigo feel.
Or it's going to intensify the pain. It'll make your eyes hurt. All things that are.
To scare them.
That's what I try to do. The parents are normally happy when I tell them their kids can't be on their phones or on their computers or playing video games. So they're normally happy about that.
Yeah, well, I agree with that. I remember my dad would always, if I was in the house past 10 o'clock in the morning, was get outside and play. I don't care what you're doing. Get out of the house.
Right.
Yeah. We didn't have electronics back then. I think it was Pong, maybe. I don't know. That's about as high tech as we ever
I
saw.
played some
Yeah.
Pong back in the day myself.
Yeah. We had Pong and we had a ping pong table. I think that was it.
Yeah.
So we were not high tech at all. So, the question is always asked by the kid, how long till I can play again?
So unfortunately, in my field, and this is probably something I should clarify too, I am not diagnosing the athlete myself. My role is to be a physician extender, which means my goal is to recognize that there is something wrong with them and
Okay.
refer them to the proper physician to get clearance.
You're
And
the
to
first
manage it.
responder, basically.
Correct.
First
So-
responder on the field.
Right. The best way for me to describe it is I'm a physician extender. I am there to take care of the athlete, to kind of give them an idea of what I think is going on. But I always tell people I do not diagnose. That's not something an athletic trainer does. We don't diagnose, but we do refer to the proper people that can diagnose those athletes. I have tools that can help me figure out what I think is wrong with
You
them.
can check the boxes.
Right, but
like,
that's
this is
my-
things that I'm seeing.
Right, but that's my way of knowing who I need to refer these patients to. So,
Gotcha.
it's not my role to kind of tell people how long they'll be out for. My goal is to get them sent to either a sports medicine doctor or their primary care physician. I prefer having them see somebody that knows them regularly. But if I have a kid that necessarily doesn't have a primary care that does sports medicine type things, I'll normally tell the mom or dad or guardian to get a hold of maybe a sports medicine physician. We have some through Mercy Health. I know there's some in the area through Akron Children's that an athlete can go see. And all those physicians normally use impact testing, which is something that I use. It's a tool that
Gotcha.
Yep,
Gotcha.
that we use.
That's one thing I'm going to bring up here.
Yep.
So, are there any OHSAA regulations about concussion protocol players for players to return to the field? I did my research. Obviously, I had kids in sports, so I am aware of some of this stuff. But again, back in my day, there was nothing.
Right.
There was nothing.
There's a medical authorization release that we have to receive before we can proceed with them athletically.
So every parent and athlete gets to read a form and says,
I'm going to back that up a little bit. So
Oh,
there's if they're concussed, they
Oh,
have
okay.
to have a release form
To come
but
back to play.
The parents and the students both sign off prior to a season and prior to our school
so
year.
we're bringing concussions
it's
awareness to everybody that's in
constantly,
sports.
yes.
Like right at the beginning, you got to sign.
They sign off on forms.
20
They
different
read through the
forms.
symptoms. We go through that process so that all the students and the
So the
and
parents and
parent
athletes
guardians
are
sign
made
up.
aware
Yes, and they
prior to the
sign off
season
on that.
starting. Okay.
If it happens and then we have a situation where we believe this student athlete is they're diagnosed with a concussion or we have a suspicion and we want to return them, they have to get a medical authorization release in order to return back to us.
Okay. So
and it'll
Johnny,
give us a guidance on how that
Johnny's
looks.
playing soccer. He's out there. He goes for a header. He heads another person, and he's concussed. The referee runs over there. The referee can send him out of the game.
Referee, she can, the coach can, I can, any of us can.
So he's done with play for the day.
Yes.
And that's by the OHSAA,
Yes.
right? They've said, hey, we believe you're concussed, you're
Yes.
out. You cannot return to play. Okay, that's a great rule, right? Okay. So now Johnny can't participate in practice, can't participate in a game until he's gone and see
A doctor.
additional,
It's a
medical.
DO or MD has to release them.
and they'll sign the form, which he brings back, and I'm sure
Yes.
that gets sent to OHSAA.
We keep it on file. It's a part of the student's permanent record, actually.
Gotcha. So, and then once he has that, he's cleared and he can come back.
Well, there's a progression to that.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
okay.
the form itself, the doctor can choose on how they want the protocol to go. So there's I think 4 different lines I can check. They can check that they don't want a protocol done at all. So return to play protocol meaning I can either use a protocol that's widely known or I can use what I normally use, or they can write on there that they don't want any protocol to be done. So
Gotcha.
that's kind
Okay.
of just based on how the doctor feels. 9 times out of 10, I know for sure that any of our athletes that come from Akron Children's, they have a form they send me with what they want done. So day 1, day 2, it's mapped out how they want me to return them.
Gotcha. So there might be
So-
gradual return, light
It is.
activity.
It is.
Kinda
Yeah.
like return to work.
The only time they're fully released is if they have either done the return with the physician or they had never had a concussion to begin with. They determined that there was no concussion, so they released them full out to
Gotcha.
participate again.
Okay, well, I mean, this is great stuff to know. And in doing my research, I did see that like you were saying, the student's coach, the official, anybody can basically tell him you're out of the game. You're not coming back today. That's great. There's a pupil activity program coaching permit. Has successfully completed within the last 3 years. Oh, that's for training.
That's for coaches.
So coaches
And officials.
and officials have to go through a concussion awareness protocol training.
Correct. Mm-hmm.
Wow, this is great. I mean, that's why they make the big money, right?
Our coaches, if people truly realize the credentials that our coaches carry before they can even coach kids at an interscholastic level, I mean, there's probably at this point, they're adding one coming up this year as well. They're probably 8 or 9 deep in terms of what they need to have in order to coach.
First aid, CPR, all that.
First aid, CPR, concussion, sudden cardiac arrest. There's other litanies of things that they have to go through. They're obviously background checked. We drug test our coaches. I mean, so there's a lot of things that we do to make sure, obviously, that the people we put in front of kids.
I don't think a lot of parents know the extent of it. They just think it's Jim from down the
They
road.
just
He's
show up
coaching.
Yeah,
he's got ego and a lot of testosterone. He wants to throw around to show everybody he's a coach.
They have credentials in order to
God
be
bless
there.
them.
They literally have a license to coach.
Yeah.
In the state of Ohio, and it's through the Ohio Department of Education.
Right. Yeah. I did read that.
So that's what the pupil
Yes.
permit is
Yeah.
referencing. And so they go through a long list of things that they have to have before they can even get that pupil permit.
Well, my son's an official.
Yep.
And I think he had to go through all that as well. So it's kind of amazing. It's not just somebody running out there throwing flags and red cards.
Right.
They're there for your kid's safety. So parents, grandparents, Johnny's he's in good hands, I think. All right. So you mentioned a little bit about impact, and I always, we didn't have it back in my day, obviously. There's a pre-screening that what do they call it? CNAD, computerized neurophysical assessment devices, the impact.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me a little bit more about what impact is.
So it's a test that I use at the beginning of the seasons. So not necessarily every season. They're normally good for 2 years. The athlete takes the test. I used to do it in person, and then once COVID had become a thing, I did it at home for a while, and then now I do it to get their baselines. It's a test that basically it can test their memory in different aspects. It tests different parts of the brain, their reaction time. There's a bunch of different shapes and
So they're trying to
words.
match shapes and stuff in a.
It's a hard
puzzle
test.
or-
It's a hard test.
Yeah.
It really is.
I never did good with tests.
So, but the purpose of it is I have a baseline. That way, when, say, I do feel like somebody could be concussed, I sit them in front of this
So
test
Johnny
again.
scores a 50 on your test of 0 to 100. Let's just say rough numbers. Just throw
Right.
something out there.
Yeah.
He scores a 50 at the beginning of the season. That's his baseline test.
Mm-hmm.
He's out there middle of the season. He gets banged up,
Mm-hmm.
and we're gonna give him this test again before he comes back, right? To see.
Normally, I try to do it same day, but the problem is some kids, if they're extremely symptomatic, I'm not going to
yeah.
be that mean. I normally will have them do it the next day.
Yeah. So within 24 hours.
Within 24 hours, I would prefer to do it.
So
Normally,
he comes back and scores a 40, and you're like, you did worse than you did the first time. So that's kind of a red flag.
So how we determine if they pass or fail is based on, there's 4 different categories. There's a memory. There's 2 different forms of memory. There's memory composite. There's a bunch of different breakdowns for it. I'd have to sit down and kind of show you it. It does. It takes a trained eye to be able to break down this information.
Okay.
So basically, each section, there's a score. When you go through each section, if there is any kind of indication that there was a significant decrease in the score or a slower time, especially on the reaction time, it'll actually flag it and make it red. But it doesn't necessarily always have to be red. That doesn't mean if they fail it if it's red.
So if he scores worse, that's just an indicator. If
Right,
nothing else,
basically.
right?
So you kind of have to determine if it's. I have to go through and see, like, okay, is it more than 5? Are they below it 5 points, 10 points? Like, how many points are we talking? Normally, if it's red, they've had a significant decrease in the number.
So then what happens to them? This is telling you there's something wrong.
Right. And
You can't
there's
come back to
symptom.
play.
There's a big symptom check sheet. Like I would think there's probably like 25 symptoms that you can go through, and then you grade how significant are these symptoms for me. Like headache, you can rate it up to 5.
So
Dizziness,
Johnny
up to
wants to
5.
get back to play. That's all
Yeah.
there is to it. He wants to come back to play.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to take, no, I don't have any. No, I'm good.
Right.
I'm
he
good.
can lie on that part. He can lie and say,
So
I have no symptoms.
Throw that one out the
Right.
window.
Right. So I don't necessarily always rely on the symptom part.
But
Because
again, it's a
it can go
tool.
one
It's a
way or the
tool.
other. Yeah, it could go one way or the other. Somebody could tell you they have a ton of symptoms, and maybe it's not as bad as
So
what they say.
Do you, as the AT, have the ultimate say when they go back? Then I mean, through this test.
No. So if I get this test back and it's a fail, they're going right to the physician. This tool is used specifically for determining or helping me figure out where is the issue. So I'm able to see, well, he's having issue remembering things, or this part of his brain is having, like, you're able to see
Gotcha.
where the lack
So
is.
if you see
slower
that, then
reaction
you're
times.
you're going to go back to the medical professional.
Right.
Lean
And
on
let
them.
them.
Yeah. Well,
let
this
them,
this
because
tool
they have
is
more
used.
tests, more
Right,
tools that
Right.
they can use.
This tool is used at the very beginning. So 24 hours after they get hurt, they haven't seen their physician yet. I use this tool to send with the child to let the physician look at.
Okay.
Yeah,
That
so
makes. I got you.
yeah, so I use it as a tool to send with them and say to the physician, I'll even highlight the parts where it shows. Like, to me, I think reaction time is a big deal. If their reaction time is slowed down significantly, imagine putting Johnny back out on the field and Johnny can't react as quickly in the football game and he gets cracked
hit.
because he doesn't come up off the line as quick.
Right.
It's between the reaction time, the memory, and other things that go with this.
How long has Howland been using that?
Did you use
Honestly,
it before me?
yes.
I was gonna say, I think
Dr.
Josh,
Jones
in
sponsored
2013,
us
he was there
Our team
2013-ish.
for many years.
Yeah, our
I
team
feel
doctor's
like
big. He's
12 to 15 years, it feels like.
That's
somewhere in
great.
that
That's-
range.
Yeah, our team doctor's a big supporter of it. Him and I had talked about how we would like to handle, like, obviously there's regulations across the board, but he wanted to know when I first started with Howland what the protocol was through Mercy Health. I told him exactly how we follow and do things, and he was 100%
happy
on
with
board
that.
with it.
He's a good doc. He's a
He
good
is.
doc. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. He's worked on my kids.
Yeah.
No doubt. So let me ask you this, only because I looked around. Peyton Manning said that when they were using impact testing back then, that he sandbagged it. He sandbagged his test, his initial baseline test, in case
Something would happen.
something would happen down the road. Is that possible?
I think anything's
Unfortunately,
possible.
it is.
Yeah.
You know,
Unfortunately, kids will try and tell me. When we used to sit in the classrooms and the kids would all sit around in a circle and they'd be whispering to each other and they would tell me, or they would tell their friends, I'm just going to bomb this. She's not going to know any different. If I look at your test and I see there's like a 20 on there, I'm making you retake it.
Yeah.
I think the fact that actually they take it at home on their own, maybe that was like one
Peer
of the
pressure.
few things.
You're cool.
Few
Oh,
things
yeah.
that
People.
COVID gave us that it was like a little more regular. Like they just sit at home on their Chromebooks. We have issued Chromebooks for all of our students K through 12.
Yeah.
So they can just go home and do it, and it takes about 30, 40 minutes.
Depending upon
On
how
those-
quick
Their
they
rea-
read.
Right. So I think that probably has minimized some of those baselines that come back to us that are a little off. But that we have to we lean on a lot of things on this, especially the kids, to be honest. And that's
Sure.
the most important thing that we stress with our student
And
athletes.
I think those kids that are out there that are competitive, I mean,
Yeah.
they want it. They
We
want
all
to be
get
on
it.
there.
Yeah.
And
I mean, all of us in this room have been there,
Yeah.
understand it, but I also think now that we're on the other side of it, like I would say experience and age-wise.
we talk about perspective,
Yeah, it's
life
like
experience.
it is
gives you
perspective, and you try to remind them, like, I'm like, trust me, when I was your age, I'd be fighting for this too, but I'm not your age, and I could tell you right now, it's not worth it. Like, one game will never be worth your entire career, athletically, or your life.
Yep.
We'll figure it out. Let's
But in
start
their
with-
eyes,
it is.
in their eyes, that's all that matters. That's the most important thing in the
Yeah.
world.
We understand and respect that, but again, what's primary in this is, are they okay? Are they safe?
Gotcha. And,
So-
and you guys do a great job. I mean, I know you look out for the kids. My kid's still alive and walking, able to walk. So I did find out that sandbagging was effective in like 11 to 30%. There was a broad range that they did a survey by New York Times, flubbing a baseline test. So is it possible? Yeah. Do you have to be coached on how to do it? I think so, because they said some of these participants were coached on how to try and defeat it, and it still only got to like 30%. So it's a great tool. All right, there's no catch-all
No, there
to
isn't.
everything. So you're doing your experience, your observations, what the athlete's telling you, plus this test. I mean, you're getting good information,
Right.
and then you're going to have a physician,
And there's
basically
times
confirm
where
what your suspicions
You
may
see
be.
an incident on the field or in the gym, and you're like, oh, yeah, I mean, that's your initial reaction. And then you go, and then there's nothing. The student is fine.
They pop up and they're good
like,
to go. They're like,
Exactly.
yeah.
So there's times, and then there's times where like, we come back afterwards and we're like, you're like, did you see anything happen to this person or this person? I'm like, no. And then they're symptomatic like the next day at practice or whatever because it was just something small enough to jar them.
You don't have to be hit
You
by
don't
Conor
have to be-
McGregor,
no,
to get a
you don't.
concussion. It's just not being in the right position, not
Right.
having your head balanced or supported, and you're being in a car accident.
Right.
Same thing. Your head goes forward,
Yep.
backwards. You can get a concussion. So I get it. So, all right, we're going to start wrapping. I'm just getting time. We're getting long on time. They're giving me signs. This brings us into our next segment. I like to call a Safety 365 recap.
It goes fast. You're
It
right.
goes fast.
You're right.
You're in, you're out.
You're painless.
So Safety 365 recap, just to kind of go over a couple of things we just talked about. 1 in 5 high school athletes will sustain a sports concussion during the season. 33% of high school athletes who have a sports concussion report 2 or more in the same year. Roughly 4 to 5 million concussions annually, with rising numbers among middle school athletes. I think because these kids are getting bigger and stronger at a younger age. Doesn't seem to be much disparity between gender when it comes to concussions, noting that the girls have been seen to have more than boys in soccer. So physiologically, I don't know what's going on there, but no real disparity. You don't need to be unconscious to have a concussion. You don't have to get knocked out. Just jarring your head the wrong way. Many signs and symptoms to be aware of. And the governing bodies of high school athletics have strict protocol in place regarding concussions to protect student athletes. We've seen that. I mean, from the coaches, the athletic directors, the trainers, the referees, everybody's on board. If Johnny looks like he's got his bell rung, he's coming out of the game and he's not playing again until it's cleared by a medical doctor. More and more is being done to provide additional safety for young athletes. So I told you this was going to be painful, right? Really painful to come on this podcast. Everybody was worrying what I was going to throw out there. But you guys have really opened up some eyes for us. And I think parents need to have it in layman's terms. Like we're just sitting around a coffee table here talking. And I think they need to hear that to let them know what's going on. Because I don't think they always do. And there are maybe parents out there that don't have kids involved in sport that
Right.
want to know what's going on. So Andrea, Shannon, I thank you so much for coming on to Safety 365
Thanks for having us.
podcast. It's been a blast
Oh,
having you.
Can we do a shout out to the kids in the back
you go
room?
right ahead. You go right
Can
ahead.
I got to meet the kids in the back room. Obviously, as an educator, it was really cool to see all the things that they do for your podcast.
They do
I
a
know
great
they have a
job.
camera in that back room. Can we?
Are they out there?
There they are.
Hey now.
Awesome.
They do a
Appreciate
great
you
job
guys,
here.
too.
Yeah, for sure. All right. I'd like special thanks to our show sponsors, Bolo Stick LLC, the door barricade device, providing safety and security to homes, schools, churches, and business locations across 42 states in the United States, internationally in 6 countries. Visit them at www.bolostick.com. And Rolf & Sons Painting, where they don't just paint your house, they beautify your home. Call them today at 330-369-2400. If you'd like to be a guest on the show or have your business advertised as a sponsor, go to safety365.us or contact us by email, podcast@safety365.us. As always, thank you to the Trumbull Career and Technical Center for making this podcast possible. For Safety 365, I'm Bill Barna, reminding you to be aware, be proactive, and stay safe.